Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I posted a new video on this channel, but here I am again, and hopefully with a video some of you asked and waited for. Today we are going to speak about prepositions in the English language. Not the easiest topic, and neither is it in any other language, I believe, as there are a lot of things that you just have to drill. Yet in this video I'll do my best to explain all the subtleties of prepositions in English. So let's begin. And we'll start with the question, what is a preposition? A preposition is a part of speech that expresses relationship between objects and phenomena. It connects a noun or a pronoun with other words in the sentence, showing how they are related to each other. In other words, or as one of my students says, prepositions are those tiny words like on, in, at, for, and so on that express relationships between words in a sentence. A couple of short examples. Alice sat on the chair. On is a preposition here. They laughed at the movie. At is a preposition. The cat jumped onto the sofa. Onto is a preposition. The kids ran through the gate. Through is a preposition. So normally we see prepositions before the words that they relate to. Let's say this is their traditional place. Let's look at some more examples to illustrate that. Gabrielle bought silver earrings for her friend. You shouldn't waste so much money on clothes. It was a windy day and there weren't many people in the street. The flower beds in front of the house need watering. For, on, in, and even in front of are prepositions. Yes, prepositions can consist of several tiny words. It's not always one word, and we'll speak about it a little bit later. Now, as to the position of prepositions, they normally stand before the word they are related to, but in some cases a preposition might be separated from the word it refers to and put at the end of the sentence or clause. In this case, we say that it is stranded. And unlike in the previous case, when we see prepositions before the words that they refer to, in this case, when we have stranded prepositions, they are stressed. Let's compare the sentences. We'll take the examples from our previous slide and compare them to the same sentences in which we put the prepositions at the very end of the sentence. Alice sat on the chair. Where is the chair Alice sat on? They laughed at the movie. What did they laugh at? What do we see here? In the questions, we have our prepositions at the very end. Why? Is it because these are questions? It is just that English allows it. So you can say, where is the chair Alice sat on? Or you can say, where is the chair on which Alice sat? What did they laugh at? You can say, at what did they laugh? The versions with stranded prepositions are more common in spoken language. Now, in which cases or maybe in which types of sentences can we put the preposition at the end? Well, this phenomenon, which we call stranding, usually occurs in questions. For instance, who are you talking to? Or what is he looking at? In relative clauses, for instance, he is the person I was talking about, or this is something I couldn't even hope for. And it also happens in passive constructions. For instance, he was well taken care of. As I've already mentioned, preposition stranding is common in spoken English and in informal communication. But in formal English, it is usually avoided. Let's compare. In informal English, you will ask, who are you waiting for? In formal English, that will be for whom are you waiting? Pay attention that we changed who to whom. That's the subject she is interested in. That's the subject in which she is interested. This is the issue we must deal with as soon as possible. This is the issue with which we must deal. So these formal questions sound a little bit old-fashioned and very formal, and unless your purpose is to sound formal, stick to the first options, where your prepositions go to the end of the sentence. Now let's talk about the classification of prepositions. First of all, morphologically, prepositions fall into the following categories. We should speak about simple prepositions such as in, on, at, for, etc. Basically those tiny words. Then there are derivative prepositions. They are called derivative because they derive from other words. For instance, due to, or thanks to, or during, and so on. For instance, during derives from a verb, from a gerund. Some other examples might be according to, owing to. These derive from adjectives and nouns. We also have compound prepositions. Inside, upon, without, etc. Why are they compound? Well, they consist of two prepositions that form one word. Inside, upon, without, and so on. And finally, we have composite prepositions. These are because of, in front of. These are those prepositions that consist of several little words. Now, according to their meaning, prepositions can be divided into many different groups. First of all, we have prepositions of place and direction. These are in, on, to, below, between, under, outside, near, and so on. This is the most numerous group of prepositions. Then we have prepositions of time. After, before, at, since, for, and so on. We also have prepositions of agent or of instrument. These are by, with, and via. Then we have prepositions of comparison and concession, such as like, as, unlike, and then. There are also prepositions of measure, price, or rate, for instance, at, for, and per. Another group of prepositions are the prepositions of cause, reason, or purpose, because of, for, due to, owing to, and so on. And finally, there is a teeny tiny group of one preposition, which is the preposition that expresses belonging. Of. We can also say that it shows the part-whole relation, like a leg of a chair, a piece of pie, and so on. Now let us look at some examples of sentences with prepositions of different groups. The concert was cancelled because of the rain. So the preposition that is used in the sentence is of, and in this case it is a preposition of cause and reason. And when I say in this case, I mean that some prepositions belong to different groups, and this is quite common with English prepositions. That's why learning them might be challenging. This book was written by a famous American writer. The preposition by shows us the agent of action. Anna is taller than her brother. Then is a preposition and it expresses comparison. This year, peaches are sold at $2 per kilo. Here, at expresses price. The patient should take this medication 2 times per day. Per is a preposition of rate. Let's meet at 5 p.m. At is a preposition of time. Jennifer found a photo beneath a pile of books. Beneath means under, and it is a preposition of place. She studied the rise and fall of various languages throughout history. In this case, throughout is a preposition of time. The festival is celebrated throughout the country. Here, throughout is a preposition of place. Now, what makes prepositions difficult for English learners? There are several reasons why they are a little bit challenging to those who study the English language. I would say that the first reason is their polysemy. We have already discussed for and throughout, and you might have noticed that some other prepositions have different meanings. They express different relations, and in linguistics we say that they are polysemantic. So polysemy is the coexistence of many different meanings of one word. The preposition for is a good example of prepositions with many meanings. Let's see. We installed an additional window for our plants to have more light. Here, for is the preposition that expresses purpose. Why did we install an additional window, right? Let's take a look at the next sentence. Jane could knit for hours and hours. Here, for does not express a purpose. Here, it expresses time. For hours and hours. For how long? Then let's take another example. The children were praised for their efforts. Here, for expresses a reason or cause. The cause of praise is their efforts. Another preposition that belongs to different semantic groups, that is, has different meanings, is the preposition at. David is at the concert with his friends. Here, at expresses place. The lesson starts at 11 a.m. Here, at tells us about the time. She never shouts at her kids. In which direction? At her kids, yeah? So at shows us direction. He looked at his shoes. Again, at expresses direction. And my friend is good at math. What does at express here? Here, at speaks about state or condition. He is good at math. She is good at drawing. My friend is terrible at singing, and so on. Let's take a look at one more preposition that is polysemantic and can belong to different groups of prepositions. This is the preposition on. There is a box with buttons on my table. On expresses place. I don't want a shelf on that wall. The same. In the first case, we speak about horizontal surface on the table. In the second case, we speak about a vertical surface and still we use on to show a place. So basically, when we use on, we speak about surfaces, yeah? Horizontal or vertical. James goes to the gym on Tuesdays and Fridays. On speaks about time here. It is common for Americans to share a family meal on Thanksgiving Day. Again, time or a specific day, yeah? I'm currently reading another book on houseplants. On means about. Michael is on duty tonight. On can also express condition or state. So Michael is on duty. It's like in which state, right? Margaret is on leave until Monday. The same. It expresses a state or condition of Margaret. Workers who go on strike typically do not receive their pay. The same condition, right? That are in what condition or in what state. No doubt, Lee acted on impulse. Here, on also speaks about the state of the doer. The second thing, which I believe is problematic for English learners when we speak about prepositions, is their homonymy with other parts of speech. And first of all, their homonymy with adverbs and conjunctions. Let's take a look at the words after and before. These words can be both prepositions, adverbs, and conjunctions. How do we know what part of speech we're dealing with? Let's see. I went for a walk after lunch. So here we see lunch, which is a noun, and as prepositions show relationships between a noun or a pronoun and other words in the sentence, and stand before a noun they are related to, here after is a preposition. I went for a walk after I finished my lunch. We see that here after precedes a clause. It connects the subordinate clause I finished my lunch to the main clause I went for a walk. What part of speech connects clauses? A conjunction. So here after is a conjunction. Let's go for a walk. We'll eat after. Here after is an adverb. As we know, adverbs modify verbs, adjectives other adverbs, and they're used without a noun. So when we see one of these words, before or after, at the very end of a clause or a sentence, and there is nothing that follows them, they are adverbs. Let's look at some examples with the word before. Jane arrived before the meeting. Again, the meeting is a noun, so before here is a preposition. It shows how the noun meeting is related to the rest of the words in this sentence. Jane left before the meeting started. The meeting started is a subordinate clause, and before connects the main clause Jane left and the subordinate adverbial clause of time. The meeting started, thus it is a conjunction. And Jane came early, but I arrived before Before here is an adverb. It is not followed by anything. Speaking about homonymy, we cannot avoid the word since. Since can also be a preposition, can be an adverb or a conjunction. And unlike the previous words, after and before, since has different meanings. Alice has changed a lot since our last meeting. The idea is the same. Our last meeting is a noun phrase. Since introduces it or connects it to other words in the sentence, which means it is a preposition. Alice has changed a lot since we last met. Here we have a subordinate clause. We last met, yeah? So we can say that since here is a conjunction. I saw Alice at Frank's birthday party. We haven't met since. Since means after that time. It stands alone at the end of the sentence, so it is an adverb. Please note that as a conjunction, since may introduce both time clauses and clauses of cause and reason. So here our example, Alice has changed a lot since we last met. Since introduces a time clause. Let me show you some examples where since introduces subordinate clauses of reason or cause. Since we hadn't communicated, I didn't know she had moved to France. Why didn't I know that she had moved to France? Because we hadn't communicated. Since introduces a clause of cause or reason. And another example, we had no reason to take a taxi since we lived nearby. That is, we had no reason to take a taxi because we lived nearby. Again, here, since introduces a subordinate clause of reason. So a general rule to remember, a rule that will help you a lot, is to remember that many time words function both as prepositions, conjunctions, and adverbs. Prepositions are followed by nouns, conjunctions by clauses, and adverbs stand alone. One more problem that we have with preposition is their homonymy with postpositions. The word postposition speaks for itself. So this is something, a word, that stands in postposition, which means after a word. What words are we talking about? We're not talking about different groups of words. These are not different words. We are talking about the same words that we call prepositions. They can function as postpositions and they can function as prepositions. Those in, on, at, for, and so on. The same words. How to differentiate them? Prepositions denote the relation between objects and phenomena and are usually not stressed. But postpositions are parts of composite words, very often of phrasal verbs, and postpositions are usually stressed. Let's look at some examples. Tim lives on the 5th floor. On is a preposition of place. During college, Tim lived on instant noodles. Here, on is a postposition. It is a part of the phrasal verb to live on, which basically means to survive. The boys ran out of the house and dashed across the yard. They ran where? Out of the house. So out shows direction, and it is a preposition. But in this sentence, we need to finish this project quickly because the deadline is approaching and our time is running out. Out is a part of the composite verb run out. What does run out mean? To end. Finally, the last challenge that I see with prepositions can be called different logic. The problem here is that every language has its own logic when to apply these or that preposition. Let's look at several examples. In English, we say I'm waiting for you, while in German the same idea is Ich warte auf dich, which literally means I wait on you. In English, we say somebody is married to somebody, while in Italian it is sposato con qualcuno, which literally means I'm married with someone. In English, it's interested in history, while in Greek it is endiaferome για την ιστορία, which literally means I'm interested for history. As you might see, looking at these examples, the logic that each of these languages follows is different from English. You just have to memorize what prepositions a verb is used with. Usually it's one particular preposition. For instance, in English we say laugh at somebody. In some other languages we might use different prepositions, not at, but in English we laugh at always, and you have to learn that by heart, basically, to drill it. We kiss somebody on their lips, we dance to the music, and we always listen to something, to the radio, to the music, and so on and so forth. So this is all about your work with a dictionary. Speaking about the logic of the English language, there are some tips that you may use in order to remember when to use this or that preposition. I believe in English the most difficult are those polysemantic prepositions that express place, direction, and time. So let's take a look at several couples of prepositions of these groups that are often confused by English learners. And we'll start with the first little grouping, in, on, and at. Well, in, on, and at are prepositions of place and time. They are polysemantic, they belong to two groups, two semantic groups. And let's tackle these two groups one by one. When in, on, and at are the prepositions of place. We use in for locations that are enclosed or large, like a country, a city, a town, a house, a room. These are all big or large places. We use on with surfaces, vertical and horizontal. We've already spoken about on the table, on the wall, but we can also say on the street or on an island, on a mountain, as we are basically speaking about surface that we are standing or lying or sitting on. At is used with precise locations, with some specific places, like at the cinema, at the prison, at the hospital, at the school, and so on. Often the is dropped, so sometimes we say at the school, at other times we say at school. The difference I illustrated in this video. We also use at with addresses. Let's look at some examples. My aunt and uncle live in Frankfurt. On Sundays, they drink coffee in a cafe in the park. No chance we can fit that sofa in that room. So we used in for different places that are big, places we can go to, we can walk in, and so on. I'll put these books on that shelf. There is a bowl with fruit on that kitchen counter. She forgot her phone on the roof of the car. All the places we are talking about here are horizontal surfaces. And finally, we have to be at the airport 3 hours before the flight. I don't really like the scent of popcorn at the cinema. She lives at 2 Rose Street. Now, when in, on, and at are prepositions of time, we use in for larger periods of time, like months, years, and centuries. And sometimes we may use in to refer to the future, like in expressions in an hour or in a month, and so on. It's when an hour passes, yeah, or when a month passes, and so on. Speaking about time, we use on for days. And what's important here is that we speak about days of the week, different dates, and when we speak about particular days of the year, like holidays, we say on Christmas, on Easter, on New Year, on my birthday, and so on. Finally, at is used for specific times of day and holiday periods, let's say. So you can say on Christmas and you can also say at Christmas. The difference will be the following. On Christmas, we mean a particular day of the year, the day when Christmas is celebrated. At Christmas, we speak about a period of time, those festive period that precedes the day when Christmas is celebrated and maybe lasts a little longer. So you are not speaking about a particular day when you say at Christmas, but rather you are speaking about a period of time. Examples. Many people take vacations in August. Steven started learning Japanese in 2019. People didn't have the internet in the 19th century. Larger periods of time, right? Months, years, centuries, and so on. The article will be ready in a month. I'll be back in a few minutes. Here we speak about some future periods of time. I prefer to go shopping on Fridays. Jane's birthday is on the 11th of April. We like to go to a pub on Christmas. On is used with specific days. And let's meet at 6 p.m. Yesterday I finished working at 8:30. They are going to go to the mountains at Christmas. Apart from what I have already mentioned, there are expressions that you just have to memorize. So the expressions to memorize here are at noon, at night, at midnight, at sunrise, at sunset. But in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. We do not say at morning, and we do not say in the noon. It's always at noon and in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and so on. Yet there are at night and in the night. What is the difference? Let me illustrate that with examples. He works at night, and there was a strange sound in the night. When we say at night, we mean nighttime in general. When we say in the night, like in the second example, we speak of a particular night. So in the night means that night. And oftentimes, not only do we speak about the night time, but we also speak about what night brings, darkness. Now, some students don't know when to use in and when to use inside. Here I want to highlight the difference between the meanings of these two prepositions. I will just mention the fact that inside can also function as an adverb and sometimes as an adjective. We are not interested in that now. We are interested in the difference between the prepositions in and inside. So in indicates a location within a space. That can be a small space or a bigger space, within boundaries of something or within an area. Whereas inside emphasizes being a part of something and is usually used when we want to stress that something is in. So it's more precise. Let's look at the examples. The kids are in the house. Please stay inside the house until the storm ends. In this case, we want to stress that you should stay inside the house, not outside it, not on a terrace, inside the house, within the inner part of it, right? The papers you're looking for are in the drawer of my desk. There is a secret compartment inside the upper drawer of my desk. So in the first case, a drawer is quite a big space where there are a lot of different things and also the papers you're looking for. The second sentence stresses that there is something inside the drawer, some secret compartment within the inner limits of it. So what conclusion can we make? We should use inside when we want to highlight the interior of something or enclosure. It's more specific. In is more abstract. Another challenge is to differentiate between in, on and into, onto. While in and on speak about a location where something is, into and onto express a movement or a direction where something or somebody is going. Into shows us that something is going from the outside inside to an inner space, and onto shows us that something is moving to the top of something or to the surface of something. It will be easy for us to differentiate in, on, and into, onto if we pay attention to the particle to. To shows direction, doesn't it? It signals about a movement. The tray is on the bed. Where is it situated? On the bed. Put the tray onto the bed, please. Where should the tray go? Yeah, where should I put it? The documents are in the drawer. Where are the documents situated? Let me put these documents into the drawer. To what place should I put them? Now, in and on can also be confused with at. For instance, we can say at the wall, we can say on the wall, and also we can say in the wall. These are all different ideas. The girl is standing at the wall. Or let's place the bed at the south wall of the room. What does at mean here? It means near. What is this spot on the wall? I want to hang this picture on that wall. Here we speak about surfaces. On is used, it's precise, it's on the surface of the wall. There are wires hidden in the walls. There is space between the plasterboards in the wall. In means literally inside. And yes, you can say inside the wall if you want to stress that. Inner space of the wall. Inside just adds more emphasis, remember that. Let's move on to between and among. These prepositions are problematic for some students. First of all, we use between when we speak about two, people, objects, or places. We use among when we speak about many, people, objects, or places. So we'll say there is not enough space for a bookshelf between the bed and the table. Let's plant this bush between these two trees. There should be no secrets between me and you. But among all the books I have, this one is the hardest to read. This bush will look awkward among all those tall trees. And the secret was shared among your friends. Let's take a look at another couple of prepositions which might constitute a challenge for some English learners. These are the prepositions since and for. We speak about these words when we learn the present perfect and the present perfect continuous tenses. By the way, if you need to revise the tenses of the English language, I have a video on my channel about it. So since we used to mark the starting point of a period of time, while for we used to indicate the duration or length of a period of time. For instance, we say, I've been teaching English for 12 years. For how long? For how many years? For indicates the duration of a period of time. I've worked as an English teacher since graduation. Since here marks the starting point of a period of time. They have been repairing this road since June, which means they have been working for already 4 months. Here we see both since and for. Since introduces the starting point of this period of time, and for shows us for how long the work has been going on. And the last couple of prepositions that I would like to talk to you about is with and by. Though they are sometimes misused by English learners, the difference between these two is pretty easy to remember. With is used to introduce the instrument or tool which is used to perform an action, while by is used to indicate the agent of action or the doer of this action. We say, you eat soup with a spoon. The preposition with introduces an instrument. She likes to write with a blue pen. Again, a blue pen is an instrument with which the action is performed. Please don't cut meat with this knife. It's for fruit. The same. With introduces the instrument with which the action is performed. The soup was cooked by my grandma. Here, by introduces the agent of action, who performed the action. The book was written by Stephen King. The same. The agent of action. Who wrote the book? Stephen King, or the book was written by Stephen King. The old tree was uprooted by strong wind during last night's storm. Again, by introduces here the agent of action. In this case, it's not a person, but a weather phenomenon. I hope I managed to illustrate the differences between some prepositions which are often misused by English learners. If you still have any questions to me regarding prepositions in the English language, please leave your comments in the comment section down below. This is all for today. I hope this video was useful. Subscribe to this channel if you don't want to miss my other lessons, and see you in the next video.